Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Gentry, and welcome outside again on this crisp fall day. As many of you know, one of my favorite things to do in D&D is tinker with the game, and over the years I have found some house homebrew rules that I've really enjoyed implementing in my game, and I think that you might enjoy some of them too. Now, some of them I may have mentioned in previous videos, but I think a few of them you may have never heard before. So today we're going to talk about my top 5 homebrew rules for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Let's get into it. Number 1, and boy oh boy are we starting controversial today, it is everyone gets to start with a feat at level 1. There are a lot of the newer backgrounds are supplying feats for level 1 characters. I think Strixhaven you get like a magic initiate type of feat. With some of the Spelljammer ones, I think you get like the tough feat, or there's like a new custom feat that you can kind of grab. But yeah, there are several feats that are already being written into backgrounds, and I think that the issue is it's getting harder and harder to justify picking other backgrounds when you could kind of just pick some of the newer backgrounds, get a free feat, and then go, awesome, nice. My background does not matter. I think it would be way better to work on a custom background or even adapt a pre-written background and then insert a feat that makes sense for that background. So, for instance, let's say somebody wants to have the criminal background. Well, you could have them have the skulker feat for free or something like that. Or let's say, for instance, somebody was a gladiator and they chose the gladiator background. Well, maybe they can have polearm master. I know for those power gamers out there, you're like, there's no way, this would absolutely destroy my game. But again, it's one of those things is as long as you're balancing accordingly, DMs, it shouldn't be that big of a problem to your game. If everyone is starting out with a feat, then you know how to prepare. It tends to help make level 1 a little bit more feasible and a little bit more exciting. I don't think I'm the only one who thinks that level 1 play in Dungeons & Dragons is not extremely exhilarating, exciting, or, there's just not a lot of options out there. I don't think the game is really designed to be played around level 1 very long. So if you can find a way to insert a feat here and then allow them to get through those first couple levels, I don't think it will impact the game that much, and you can always balance around it. I always drive to very secluded areas when I do these videos, and then always somehow people end up like parking a little bit nearby, so it's just, I find it fun. Just people love me wherever I go. They're probably my fans. It's not true. Number 2, and this is one of the few homebrew rules that are not favorable towards the player on my list, but I think it could still add a lot of drama and tension and fun action into your game, and that is lingering injuries. Now, immediately some of you are going to go, whoa. I don't want to make my character play worse for an extended period of time. That doesn't sound like fun to me. Well, of course it doesn't. But if you add drama into something, or if you make something into a problem that can then become a quest, I think that can add a lot of flavor into your game. So for instance, there's a joke running at my table for a long time that I've been scoping out their arms for devious purposes. I think it comes from the fact that I watched Taz a long time ago, The Adventure Zone, and I think it was Merle who he lost his arm in I think it was like the pain game or the sacrifice game. It's been a long time since I've watched it. But I think somebody lost an eye, somebody lost an arm, but something like losing an arm or losing an eye is evidence that your character has gone through something traumatic and extraordinary, which is, in my opinion, a defining trait of an adventurer. I think sometimes it can feel like, at least as a DM, I see the players start and finish the game, and they may have had a few quests here and there that change the outlook of their character, or perhaps they play them slightly differently than they did from the beginning to the end. But if I were to make artwork of their character, the only thing that would really change is perhaps the more powerful gear that they've equipped. And I don't like that. That to me feels like an MMO. It feels like you could play Destiny online and you could just grind better loot, and then that's like, yep. But as the player of Destiny, look, I loved that game at one point, just like many other people did. But it just feels like, yeah, I didn't grow as a person, or my character did not grow within the game. You just simply look cooler. But something like gaining a scar, an arm, a lingering injury could make it interesting. Now, I don't want to put lots of disadvantages on players for extended periods of time, but perhaps if somebody loses an eye, they have disadvantage on perception checks for a while, until they creatively find a way to alleviate themselves of this problem, or you as the DM set them up to alleviate this problem. So, for instance, what I will probably do with a character who has recently lost an arm is I will have them meet a tinkerer who's going to give them a sweet robot arm, and that robot arm is going to be better than their dumb, stupid, fleshy arm. Or if somebody loses an eye, perhaps you could have a magic tattoo artist tattoo an eye over the eyelid of that used to be there, and now they can see through that eye. And perhaps they even get advantage on a perception checks, or they have magical dark vision that extends another 40 feet or something like that. I think that lingering injuries should always be followed up with a reward, especially with creative thinking and problem solving to alleviate their character of that lingering injury. Number 3, and this is a dangerous one and one that I recommend playing with before you implement full time, and that is hero dice. For those of you who aren't familiar, hero dice are a mechanic that are listed in the Dungeon Master's Guide, I believe, and it's an optional rule. And essentially what it says is that heroes are heroic, and they can do heroic things, and they can accumulate hero dice, which are d6s, and they can add them to any check or attack that they want whenever they want to. Now, the problem is that we were playing a very fast leveling game, and what would happen is that everybody essentially gained, I think they gained their level +1 of hero dice, and so by level, I think we had level 12, everybody had 13 hero dice to play around with, right, for the big boss fight. And I just said, you know what, just put all of your hero dice in a bowl together and you can just distribute them amongst each other, because they had so many they didn't even use them all most of the time. So I think that there's a way to balance this out, right? Maybe you only do half level +1, or maybe you only reward them every other level, or maybe kind of like inspiration, you just hand them out every now and again. I think if you give them out too generously like I did, the problem that you'll run into is that the players just don't care about them, or they're not really a important commodity for everybody at all, because everybody has so many of them, you're not going to use them all. It's it doesn't even matter. And then they just end up succeeding at everything all the time, because they'll just stack 6 hero dice. Maybe you could only have it where you can only use 1 die at a time or something like that. But this is definitely for a game where the characters are supposed to be more heroic. They are supposed to succeed more often because they are heroes and they're powerful at that. The next thing that I would like to implement in my game, and I probably will the next time that I DM, is a training montage. Now, sorry. I keep looking over to the right because I'm hearing something, but I think it's just 2 cat tails rubbing together, and it just sounds like people whispering, and so it's freaking me out. I'm like, who's watching me? Sorry about that. You're just watching me melt in front of the camera. Anyways, training montages I think would be a good way for people to engage in activities that allow them to train in other things, perhaps give them access to some bonuses that would take a while to practice and perfect, but at the same time, you don't have to spend an entire session playing out what the next year looks like while they master a new language or skill proficiency or something like that. Matthew Colville, one of my favorite DMs of all time, has a magazine called Arcadia, and in one of these, it gives a lot of maneuvers that characters can actually practice with each other. So a lot of them are combo maneuvers. So there's a caster, and they can cast something that essentially, using their reaction, that empowers another player's action, which is a gun bullet. So they shoot the bullet, the other person uses their reaction to cast a firebolt around the bullet, and it creates this explosive power. Now, it's only an extra d6 of damage, but for a caster who isn't using their reaction very often, perhaps it is just beneficial for them to be able to do that. And it doesn't make sense for those people to be able to just know how to do that or to master that after talking about it for 5 minutes. So you can do a training montage, and perhaps during that training montage, somebody can pick up a skill proficiency, somebody can gain proficiency with a single weapon or a language, something like that, where you're off screen or through montage showing that progress is being made, things that aren't normally awarded through levels, or even you could do between level gaps like that, and then they come out on the other side better than they were before. And the last one, and this is in my opinion the best homebrew rule that I have ever used, and it is changing the way the crits work. Instead of using double the dice, it is max dice plus base damage or whatever. So here's what I mean. Let's say a character is rolling a crit on their greatsword attack. It's typically 2d6 plus 4. Now, with my new crit rules, instead of being 4d6 plus 4, it's 2d6 plus 12 plus 4. So that's 16 base plus whatever the 2d6 equal out to. And why I think this is better is because crits should matter, right? It should be an important moment when a character crits in the game. And sometimes if you just roll double dice, you just roll all ones. And that is what I would call a bad time. Because you rolled a crit, you got the 5% chance on your turn that you were able to do some incredible thing. And the dice let you down, and you just did like a pretty much a normal thing. But with max dice plus damage, that allows you to always feel, even if you roll ones on your whatever dice rolls, you still were able to do the max damage of the turn plus some. So you will always be netting greater than it was possible to do before. But there you have it, everybody. I know that this was a shorter video than normal, but I just thought, hey, why don't we get out there and release something? I'll be honest, I've been struggling lately. I had this really huge peak video like a month ago or 2 months ago from Baldur's Gate where that got like 100,000 views, way more than any of my other videos. And then since then, it's just been a slow trickle of decline because I was like, all right, well, let me hop on this train. So then I made a part 2 to that video. That one got 10,000 views. Very respectable and way more than I was getting before, but much less. And then I made another video follow-up after that, and that one got 1,000 views. And then I made another one after that, and that one also got 1,000 views. So my channel has leveled out, and that's okay. I've been in social media long enough to know that there are giant waves and that cools down into a plateau, and then there are giant waves and that cools down until it reaches another plateau, and it's kind of this like bump growth again and again and again. But what did you think about these homebrew rules? I'm really curious. I have some more planned for another video, but if you want to share your favorite homebrew rules in the comments below, please do so. I would love to check them out, and I might even feature them in my next video. But with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you like this video. If you like it, then please leave a like, hit subscribe. I put out new D&D videos regularly. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Good luck out there, adventurer.